Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Red Hour, a show I do twice a week where I throw a little chaos into Star Trek by reviewing a random episode. And today's episode is from Voyager, Season 5, Episode 2, Drone. So, when I left off last week, when the random episode, when I pressed the random episode button generator, I said that I recognized the title of this episode, but I wasn't sure what the plot was. And then going into it, I remembered, or remember saying last week that it's probably since it's season 5 is something to do with seven, and and since it's drone is probably something to do with a Borg. I think I had speculated that maybe it was also something else, maybe with the kids or I don't remember what I had said, but anyway, it's not hard to figure out that from season 4 on, most episodes are going to be seven focused. So there's that. But and then drone basically gives it away. So I was correct in my assessment or my guess. So in this episode, it starts off with Seven has a mirror in, so she steps out of her alcove, regeneration alcove, and there's a mirror there that she's looking in, and basically practicing smiling. She's doing different little smiles to see which one uh, looks the best or whatever. Basically, uh, trying to improve on her humanity, which the doctor has been helping her with. And then suddenly the doctor comes in and he asks her if she's ready, and they're about to go on an away mission. And she says that next time she wants to be, you know, let her know when he's coming. So he says, next time I'll knock. So in the shuttle, we get I think they called it a class 2 shuttle. We get Tom, Balana, the doctor, and Seven. And they're going on a astronomical survey, which they talk about, which the doctor and Seven talks about in the corridors on the way to the shuttleway. So in the shuttle, they call it a class 2 shuttle, and Balana says that it's kind of cramped, and the in Starfleet Academy they had a name for it, and I forget what she said, but basically it was faster but smaller and sort of a lighter shuttle. And then um, Seven says that maybe it's time to design a newer shuttle, to which perks Tom's interest. So this is the beginning of the setting the stage for the Delta Flyer that we'll see later on down the road. So what they're observing is there's a nebula forming, and there's like this plasma surge that keeps popping up, and it looks like this big red blob. And at first there's a little bit of turbulence, no big deal. And the doctor has brought along his hollow imager, which is basically like a camera. And we've seen this used in episodes before, um, and basically just creates a hollow image as self-describing. I'm guessing that's what they used, what Tasha Yar used when you see Data has an image of her that he keeps. But we're not introduced to the physical prop until I think sometime a little bit earlier in this season or the last season. Sometime a little bit earlier in Voyager. So then another plasma surge goes off. This time it's bigger, and it disrupts the shuttle, and they're having trouble. They're basically getting sucked into it, and if they do, it's going to destroy the shuttle and along with them. Uh, so they contact, or actually Voyager sees what's going on. I think it's Harry Kim that gives the information across, and then Tuvok, and so they Janeway says to beam them, emergency beam them, and they're having a little bit of trouble, and everybody they beam aboard, and the doctor starts to kind of fluctuate in and out, and he's having trouble with his emitter, but they fix the remedy situation, and B'Elanna basically says she's going to transfer his matrix over back to the sick bay where the sick bay has emitters, and she's going to work on trying to fix it. So they take it to the science lab and lay it on a console where it's getting scanned or whatever to do a diagnostic. And then all of a sudden, as they walk away, you see those Borg. Excuse me. Ah, one more time. Oh, God. Uh, sorry. There's little Borg tentacle things that come out of Seven's fingers, the nodes, or whatever they're called. And that's the end of the teaser. So after the credits roll and we get our theme music, we get a captain's log with Janeway basically saying that they are going to keep their distance from this plasma surge thing and keep an eye on it while they're doing their survey. So we go to Lieutenant Torres's. Michelle Ferry says hello. You see Lieutenant Torres's quarters, and it's 0600. It's 0600, and she's being woken up by the doctor who wants to know the progress of his emitter because he wants to be able to walk around the ship and be mobile again. And she's mad because she's like Bruce Banner. That's her secret. She's always angry. So she's always baseline angry, but she's mad this time because today was her chance to sleep in, and he's bothering her at 6 in the morning. So she basically tells him to fuck off and goes to get in her. And says she'll be there as soon as possible or something like that. And uh, goes to take a sonic shower, and she undresses, and then the doctor pops in again on the monitor and has one more thing that he wanted to say, and I don't. It wasn't important what he had to say, and she puts a towel on him real quick and kind of gives him a dirty look, and he says that he's a doctor, not a peeping tom. So we get one of those. I'm a doctor, not a blah blah blah. So back at cargo bay, back at the cargo bay, Seven, um, her regeneration cycle ends earlier than it's supposed to, and was not, and she wakes up early, uh, and goes to the bridge and so on the bridge, Harry is, I guess, doing like the equivalent of the third shift or the night shift or whatever. And so he's in charge of the bridge, and Chakotay walks in, and he's talking to Harry about things that were going on during his shift, and ask him what how does it feel to be in the big chair, and ask him that so and so had said, "Is it true?" Or he goes, "Is it true that you asked them to call you Captain Kim?" And he says, "What?" And that's at that moment he's basically giving him shit. So at that moment, that's when Seven walks in, and they ask her what's going on, and she says that her proximity transmitter is going off, basically indicating that it's possible that the Borg are nearby. And then Chakotay says that it could also mean that it's malfunctioning, and she agrees. And so then Harry says, "Oh, he's basically going to take a look at it." And at that point, Chakotay says to him, "If you don't mind being an ensign again." So joking with him that he was a captain he was a captain, but now he's has to go back to being an ensign. And I've seen this episode multiple times, and every time it kind of it's not a hilarious joke, but it kind of gave me a chuckle, and it made me think of incoming rant. Um, uh, Incoming transmission or incoming rant. I don't know. I wish I had that button that Admiral Teague has. So I have to make up my own sound effects. Um, Compare that subtle humor, right? The little joking, and that's something that is believable because it's the type of stuff that we do to our coworkers and people in our family and our friends. Is these little jabs, nothing too big, uh, but they're funny, and they sound believable. Uh, Compare that to, I think Starfleet Academy. I think I swallowed my comm badge, and the doctor replies, "Already?" And they think that's supposed to be funny, which it's not. It's stupid, and it's something that a person would not say because they would not be so idiotic to swallow a comm badge. How does that even happen? And for the doctor to say already implies that this is a ongoing thing that happens among cadets. that they frequently swallow their comm badge. Now I've gone on other channels and sent in super chats just asking this basic question scenario. Let's say, and this is for my audience out there, Michelle Ferry and whoever else is listening. Let's say you are boarding a plane and you overhear the pilot talk to the co pilot with the same dialogue, and they're completely serious, they're not joking. I think I swallowed my cell phone. And the co pilot says, already? Do you continue to board that plane or do you get off that plane? Simple question. And anybody that defends the says, "Oh, I'll continue on the plane," then good luck with you. And anybody that defends lines like that are as stupid as the line itself. And if you think, and I've already seen people defending it, so, comparing it to, and this is the old, oh, Star Trek's always had to do. Star Trek has always had jokes. They didn't have, and somebody brought up the Ferengi, the episode of Deep Space Nine where Quark dresses up like a girl and tries to, he's trying to do some deal with some guy. I don't remember the exactly what happened, but and how it. I noticed how nobody brought up the magnificent Ferengi, which is a excellent humorous episode with the one with Iggy Pop, and then the other guy, one of the other guys that work with the founders, and it's fun. It's a funny episode. It doesn't have stupid lines, and the humor is natural compared to this. And they try to do like Marvel quips and jokes, and it doesn't work. It's not funny. The third episode was boring, and at some point I found myself just drifting off and doing other stuff because I couldn't. It was just there's been very few things in my life in 40 plus years of watching television and movies where something was literally unwatchable. But that third episode of Starfleet Academy at some point was completely unwatchable. I kept finding myself going, "Oh my God, are you serious?" And then of taunting, doing McVulcan thing anyway with with humans, much in the beginning to begin. I'm not gonna do reviews because I just can't be arsed to do it, and my schedule. I never know from week to week whether my schedule is even going to allow it. So I just decide to throw in a little bit of a rant in here and compare and contrast with old old Trek, and to show people examples of both, so that just I don't know, because it deserves to be shown. I think to show that this type of their writing is stupid and unbearable versus this. and a lot of people don't like Voyager, and I wasn't a big, huge fan until Seven came along. But you know, they they at least it wasn't it wasn't like they didn't treat the characters like they were teenagers, and they didn't have dialogue like they were teenagers. And I've said that before. So, anyway, going forward, rant over. Where was I? So, one of the science officers, goes into the science lab to investigate what's going on with the doctor's mobile emitter, and he gets zapped with those tentacle things that Seven has in her hand. I don't know what they're called. Nodes, I think. Well, the thing on her eye is like a node, but I don't know what they're called. I just call them tentacle things. And it's a long tradition in Trek to have tentacle things because New Trek is bringing it back in almost every season of New Trek has a tentacle thing. I guess they looked back on Voyager and said, "Hey, that's pretty cool. Why don't we do that?" And also, let's rip off every known science fiction thing ever, including the Matrix. And he gets zapped with that, and and gets knocked out. So then, back on um, back on the bridge, her Seven's Seven's transponder goes off again, and this time it's in the science lab. So they're thinking that the Borg ha- are on the ship. So they head to the ship to the science lab, and security's with them. Seven's with them, or Seven's there, and security's there, and they find this Borg technology that Seven says is a looks like a mature. I'm going to butcher this word. Maturation station or chamber, where they grow. They there's like a there's a human Borg fetus inside, and they do a scan of the guy, the science guy, the yellow shirt. And I was kind of talking to Admiral Teague the other day, and I said, we use the term red shirt for like a security officer that gets killed on a away mission. I think we should use a yellow shirt for a a science officer that gets into a bad relationship with a woman, because you have Geordi, who's constantly in bad relationships with women. You have Barclay, who's constantly in bad relationships with women. And you have Harry Kim, who has constantly bad relationships with women. And now Starfleet Academy with Janet Reno, or Janet Reno. The Attorney General for Bill Clinton, no, Jet Reno, who's in a relationship with this Jem'Hadar woman. She's a whole lot of woman, sort of like Rosie. So that I was like, why don't we coin that term, a yellow shirt? But anyway, this is different yellow shirt. Who the tentacle thing took DNA from him, combined it with technology from the Doctor's emitter, which is from the 29th century, which they point out is 500 years from there, and uh, and created this Borg baby, and they say that it's mostly human, and so the drone baby is taken. Well, Janeway comes in and they have a discussion about whether or not to kill it because Tuvok is concerned, because it's the Borg, and they could find out about it. They may have even known about it, or they may have this thing may have sent some sort of transmission to the Borg. And Janeway says no, that she doesn't want to terminate it just yet. Now, I don't want to get into the politics of all this, but I feel that in New Trek, they would insert the politics of unaliving a baby or a fetus. They would throw that, and they would basically tell you what the morally right thing to do is, instead of allowing the audience to think about that. Now, they don't get into that discussion in this episode, but when they were talking about it, I know how I feel about it, and that idea did pop into my head, so it did make me think a little bit. But they don't explore it, in depth. So so then the nanopros basically created this person, and the mobile emitter is it's a male, the boy's brain, and serves as like the central nerve function, so they can't remove it. So again, that discussion of taking its life, they flat out say they can't remove it because they would kill him. So then in Janeway's ready room, they're having that discussion, and she tells Seven that she doesn't want to terminate it just yet because she wants this is opportunity to teach it, and to teach it our values, Federation values, and to be to be a human and have individuality. And Seven has her concerns because, again, it's a Borg drone, and they could be looking for it, and it's got advanced technology, and Janeway reminds her that there was a risk with Seven, and taking her on board the ship, and trying to teach her individuality and humanity, to regain her humanity. And again, incoming rant, you're not going to see these type of, even if it's just a short little discussion, you're not going to see it. You don't see it in Starfleet Academy. You see the Chancellor tell them how to cheat at a prank, and to use empathy to overcome their enemies, when in the first episode she destroyed Paul Giamatti's ship without even scanning. And she had already neutralized the ship, so it was no longer a danger. They couldn't warp out of there, and she didn't even ask how many life forms were on the ship. None of that. Gavin Blackburn is in the house. Hello there. I was going to do an English accent, and then it was going to be my version of Mahler, but I decided to not do it. I was going to say hello there, good sir. That's what that's what Mahler sounds like to me. Um, and I imagine, I've listened to the Beatles talk, so I've done my own John Lennon and Paul McCartney. Uh, anyway, I crack myself up. So, Seven is going to be the ambassador to this drone, and Janeway wants her to teach the drone how to be an individual. So she completes the maturation cycle, and keep in mind that security is everywhere. Is following her, following the drone everywhere the drone goes, just in case. And they got phasers locked and loaded, and she tries to tell him that his to comply with what she's saying, and that she the that he's an individual, he's not part of the collective, and that his name doesn't matter, his designation doesn't matter. I couldn't think of the word. And he doesn't understand, so she has to do a neural link where she takes her little tentacle things and jabs him in the neck. And then suddenly he grabs her arm, won't let go, and he's trying to assimilate like all of her information, everything she knows. And he's hurting her. She tells him, "You're hurting me," and he still won't let go. And then she eventually tells him to comply, and he backs off, and he wants to know more. And she tells him that he's got enough information for now, and it's time, that he needs to regenerate. So then we see in engineering, Balana and Neelix are there, and Balana's, like I said, baseline, she's Bruce Banner, always pissed off, or she's always angry. So she's baseline angry and doesn't like this situation, and tells Neelix that, um, you know, the drone had grown. I forgot to say that the drone had grown in a rapid succession, like within hours. It went from being a fetus to like a fully grown adult, and she was not kind of nervous about that, and again skeptical, and Neelix said, she says, "What if it, I'm worried about what it becomes," and Neelix says, "Well, it'll just become whatever it becomes." And she goes, "How Starfleet of you." So I chuckled at that. That was kind of funny. Again, it's self-aware that, obviously, her being a former Marquis, she's, well, she went to Starfleet Academy, but rejected those ideas, and then now is back into it. And of course she's part Klingon, so the bright future of that, of Gene's vision and Starfleet's vision, she's still kind of iffy with it. But she's, does her job, and does it good. So then, the drone downloads more information and begins to understand um, what the situation is. That he's an explorer. They're all explorers. He says your designation is Neelix, and Neelix says that's right. Your designation is 7 of 9. So now he's understanding what's going on, and what that he's not part of the collective, and that uh, and wants to and just wants to learn more. So then Neela is supposed to escort him to uh, sick bay for an examination, and he doesn't want to go because he's sort of attached himself to Seven, and she says that she'll meet him there. Every person on board has to get an examination from the doctor. So they're on their way, and they're talking in the corridors about how one woman looked at him kind of funny and was kind of like was asking Neelix if they're scared of the Borg, and he says that they can cause anxiety and um, stuff like that. And his Borg outfit is supposed to be like more advanced, and they're trying to make it look more advanced, but I think to be frank, it looks awful. It does. I like the costuming that they did on First Contact was an upgrade, and I thought it looked great, and they reuse it on Voyager. But this one is just like it's just a rubber, complete full rubber suit, and it just looks awful. I just wanted to say that. Um, so then we get to a point where Seven is talking to Janeway, and is concerned because this drone wants to know more about the Borg, and she's concerned that he would. She says something about the call, the having the one voice in your head. It is calling. It's soothing at times, and she's concerned that the drone would want to be assimilated and be part of the Borg. And then she shows him engineering, and Bolana is again pissed off, doesn't want him there, and Seven says that they have permission to tour the ship, and Bolana says to go somewhere else because she's busy. She's trying to get the ship away from this nebula, because if they get dragged into it, it'll be destroyed. And the drone asks to help, so he does his little tentacle thing into the console and solves this algorithm that she was trying to solve. So she's impressed by that. Then he goes to visit Janeway, and Janeway he had come up with a name. He calls himself One, and he wants to know more about the Borg, and they talk about it. And then he says that he wants to be excused because he wants to help B'Elanna some more. So then that's when Seven and Janeway talk about exposing him to the Borg, and their history, and what exactly they do. And then in the cargo bay 2, where the alcoves are, he again expresses that he wants to know more about the Borg, and she says that he must regenerate, and she's trying to avoid the conversation. So she gets him to regenerate, and then he thanks her, and then you see like this look on her face, like she's surprised by that. Then this blinky thing goes off and on his neck, and then they come out of regeneration with security there, and we see this Borg spear that has intercepted the transmission, because basically there was a backup transponder. They'd shut down the transponder, but then the nanites built a backup one without them knowing about it. And the Borg spear is like 3 hours to interception. And Janeway turns to Seven and she says, "I think it's time we show him what the Borg are all about." So they explain that they don't want their. She explains, he's asking about his individuality and what happens when someone is assimilated. And Janeway explains that their individuality is taken away and they become part of the hive mind. And he turns to Seven and she says that we freed her from the hive mind, and it's taken time for them to get back to her humanity. And she wants to know if he'll help them upgrade their weapons, their weapons and their shields. And he says he wants to think about it. And then, but it's too late. The Borg ship, the cube or the spear, has arrived, and so they're being attacked. And Seven tells them to comply with helping them, and he upgrades their shields, and they break off. And then he upgrades the phasers, and they shoot a phaser, but they shoot the phaser back. And he says he can't upgrade anymore. That it's obsolete technology. His technologies, but he says that he could go on the Borg spear and disable the spear from the inside. So he beams aboard. Some Borg drones attack. He easily knocks them away. He disables he takes over their transportation and flies the spear into the nebula, and destroys the spear. And then they detect that he had survived, but he was severely damaged. The nanites are repairing all the cybernetic parts, but his physical body is severely damaged, and they beam him to sick bay, and the doctor says he needs surgery. He refuses surgery. He looks to Seven and says that they'll keep looking for him. Like he can't hide from them. Like the Borg will eventually hunt them down and find them. So it's like if you watched the Stranger Things finale, that was their reasoning, was 11 has to sacrifice herself because they're never going to stop with these experiments, and they're never going to stop hunting for 11. So same thing. He builds a force field over himself so the doctor can't perform the surgery, and Seven is upset about this and tells him to take down the force field and tells him to comply. He refuses, and she says that that you're hurting my feelings, or you're hurting me. So call back to earlier in the episode, and he says that you'll adapt, and then he dies. And Seven Um, she's overwhelmed with emotion and is very sad. She goes to her she goes over and shuts down his alcove that he was using and looks in that mirror again. And that's the way it ends. And I think it's a great um, character episode moment. But as Gavin Blackburn has complained in the past, uh, the Borg are too easily defeated in Voyager, and that's been a complaint for that I've heard from a lot of fans, and I would agree. So having this guy around makes it even easier, and I think watching the episode, you don't know this character long enough to feel bad for his death. But you can, we have known Seven long enough to feel bad for her. So I think, imagine if you introduce this character, and this is the second episode of the fifth season. So imagine if you introduce this character in this episode and had him around till the end of the season, and in the season finale, there's this conflict with the Borg, and then he dies, and we've gotten to know him throughout the course of the season. Maybe he's not in every episode, but there's enough episodes there that you can kind of feel sympathy and feel for him, and maybe it would bring up more emotions. Or if you're not gonna, at the very least, this should have been a two-parter, I think, and that way we can spend more time with this character. So I think it's a great concept, but sort of poor execution. So that being said, I still think it's a good emotional episode, and it's a good moment for Seven. She essentially is. It's essentially like having a son, and your son sacrifices himself to save you and the whole entire crew, and that's why Seven is reacts the way she does. So good on Jerry Ryan, but I feel that there should have been more to it, and that, of course, that complicates things because that makes it easier for them to defeat the Borg. So, but then she also had Icheb, which was done dirty in Star Trek Picard, and I don't think I'll ever forgive Alex Kurtzman for that one. And they changed Seven's personality where she's a lesbian ranger, like, bounty hunter type person. And I get it. It's been 20, 30 years since they got back to Earth, that her personality would change, but I don't think that it would change that drastically. And people in New Trek are just suddenly gay somehow. Anyway, so 7 out of 10 for the episode, even with those criticisms. So now let's see what everybody's saying. I know that people have said hello to each other. Did everybody survive the storm? those of us in the South, East Coast, and I think the Midwest got hit, and Texas, parts of Texas got hit. Uh, Janet Reno, DJ Plano says Janet Reno. Been a minute since I heard that name. Yeah, I always think of that SNL Will Ferrell. So she does kind of. So she kind of got Janet Reno's or Jet Reno's girlfriend has the same build. A whole lot of rose. DJ Plano says, if it's your first time watching, welcome in. I hope you hit the like and comment and subscribe button. Yes, I would agree with that statement. If there are people lurking out there, welcome. Admiral T, if you're out there, hello. One-eyed E-chip. I know, but that's the other thing. We got our eye thing, because we always have to have a eye thing in Starfleet Academy in the third episode where they can replicate eyes. Presume they can replicate other body parts, and we know that Nog got a new leg. Yet there are handicapped people in a wheelchair. Explain that one. And I heard people defending that by saying, well, there's handicapped people today that don't want to have their handicap cured. Okay, so then you're just a virtue signaling asshole, I guess. I don't know. If I was missing a leg and I could get one regrown, I would get one regrown. Sorry. Crazy, I know. But yeah, so it's always an eye in New Trek. They're poking people's eye out, or they're squishing an eye, or recreating an eye. Medical phaser, yeah. Oh shit. Michelle's got bad internet. That sucks. I've had rough internet past couple weeks. Anyway, now we get to that one. That one was a little bit longer. I guess I had more to say about it. Family viewing. Yeah, family viewing. Right? Everybody's cursing, flipping each other off, double. Yeah, family viewing. Right. Okay. Yeah, tonight this review has gone a little bit longer because I had a little bit of a Starfleet Academy rant, and I had a little bit more to say about this episode. So, as you can see, nothing got messed up, thankfully. So randomize again. Picard, nope, not doing it. Randomize again. TNG season 1, episode 11, Haven. TNG is season 1 is not necessarily a good one in Haven. So Haven. Don't remember. Have I done that one? No, I haven't done that one. Yeah, so season 1, episode 11, Haven. Haven't done that one. Don't remember it at all. And it's not like I go back eagerly to rewatch season one of TNG. Still better than so far season one of Starfleet Academy, because there are some bangers in there. Not many, but there are some. But at least you don't have people talking like teenagers and flipping each other off, and Vulcans doing things because they're fun. Make it make sense. So I'll be back tomorrow. It's a normal schedule this week, thank God. Hopefully things will be back to normal uh, going forward with my job. I want to thank DJ Play Nice, Michelle Fairy Tales, and Gavin Blackburn for showing up. Gavin Blackburn, I think I saw you the other day on the Admiral Teague's channel, I think. Maybe it was Price of Reason last night, or I don't know. You're all over the place. I see you all the time. I want to, and anybody that's lurking, I want to thank you as well. And anybody that watches this in the future, I will be back tomorrow for Season 1, Episode 11, Haven, TNG. Have a good night. Live long and prosper.